Dante's Inferno. Explained. A complete summary. Imagine waking up in a dark forest with no idea how you got there. You cannot find the correct path. Every direction seems dangerous, and the farther you walk, the more lost you become. That is where Dante's Inferno begins. Written by Dante Alighieri, Inferno is the first part of the Divine Comedy. It follows a fictional version of Dante as he travels through hell while still alive. Throughout the journey, Dante meets people from history, mythology, religion, politics, and his own life. Each soul receives a punishment that reflects the sin that controlled that person on earth. Dante's journey is not simply about witnessing punishment. He must learn to recognize sin, understand responsibility, and find his way back toward spiritual truth. Cantos 1 to 3, The Dark Forest and the Gates of Hell. Dante explains that he is halfway through his life when he realizes he has wandered away from the correct path. He finds himself alone in a dark and tangled forest. The forest represents his spiritual condition. He has become separated from goodness, faith, and truth. Dante sees a sunlit hill and believes he can escape by climbing it. However, 3 animals block his path: a leopard, a lion, and a starving she-wolf. The animals represent forms of sin that Dante cannot overcome through his own strength. As the she-wolf forces him backward, Dante sees Virgil, the ancient Roman poet who wrote the Aeneid. Virgil tells Dante that he cannot escape by taking the direct path. Instead, he must travel through hell and witness the consequences of sin. Virgil will then guide him through purgatory. However, he cannot enter heaven, so another guide will eventually take Dante farther. Dante initially agrees, but soon becomes afraid. He does not believe he is worthy of entering the afterlife while alive. Virgil explains that Beatrice sent him. During her life, Beatrice was someone Dante deeply loved. In the poem, she also represents divine love and spiritual truth. Beatrice saw that Dante was in danger and asked Virgil to rescue him. Once Dante realizes that heaven has not abandoned him, his courage returns. Dante and Virgil arrive at the gate of hell. Above it is a warning that ends with the words, "Abandon every hope, you who enter." After entering, Dante hears screams, cries, and voices speaking in many languages. The first souls they meet are people who refuse to choose between good and evil. They avoided responsibility and lived only for themselves. Because they followed nothing meaningful during life, they now chase a blank banner while insects sting them. Virgil tells Dante not to waste time thinking about them. They reach the river Acheron, where Charon carries the dead into hell. Charon refuses to take Dante because he is alive, but Virgil explains that their journey has been commanded by heaven. The ground shakes, a red light flashes, and Dante loses consciousness. When he wakes, he has crossed the river. Cantos 4 to 6, Limbo, Lust, and Gluttony. The first circle of hell is Limbo. The souls there are not physically tortured. Instead, they suffer because they can never enter heaven. Many lived honorable lives before Christianity or were never baptized. Their punishment is to desire God while knowing they can never reach him. Virgil belongs in limbo. Dante meets several great writers and philosophers, including Homer, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They represent the greatest achievements of human reason. But in Dante's religious worldview, intelligence alone cannot lead them to salvation. Dante and Virgil Then enter the second circle. At the entrance stands Minos, the judge of the dead. He wraps his tail around his body to show which circle each soul must enter. Inside, a violent storm throws souls endlessly through the air. These are the lustful. Because they allowed desire to control them, they are now carried by winds they cannot control. Dante speaks with Francesca da Rimini and Paolo Malatesta. Francesca was married to Paolo's brother, but she and Paolo fell in love. One day, while reading a romance about Lancelot and Guinevere, Paolo kissed her. Their relationship was discovered, and Francesca's husband killed them both. Francesca speaks as though love was an unstoppable force. However, she never fully accepts responsibility for her choices. Dante feels so much pity that he faints. When he awakens, he is in the third circle. A cold and filthy rain falls on the gluttonous. They lie in mud, while the three-headed monster Cerberus scratches and bites them. During life, these souls focus too heavily on food, drink, and physical pleasure. Now they lie like animals in filth. Dante speaks with Ciacco, a man from Florence. Ciacco predicts that political conflict will divide the city and eventually contribute to Dante's exile. This begins one of the poem's repeated themes. Dante uses hell to criticize the political corruption of Florence. Cantos 7-9. Greed, anger, and the city of Dis. In the fourth circle, Dante sees two groups pushing enormous weights. When they collide, one group shouts, "Why do you hoard?" while the other shouts, "Why do you waste?" These are the greedy and the wasteful. One group refused to use wealth because they wanted to keep everything. The other spent wealth without restraint. Although their actions were opposite, both allowed money to control their lives. Dante notices that many were religious leaders. Virgil explains that popes, priests, and cardinals are among them. Dante and Virgil then enter the fifth circle, which contains the swamp of Styx. On the surface, the wrathful attack one another. Beneath the mud, the sullen remain trapped because they buried themselves in bitterness during life. A boatman named Phlegyas carries Dante and Virgil across the swamp. A Florentine named Filippo Argenti rises from the water and confronts Dante. Unlike his reaction to Francesca, Dante shows no pity. He believes Filippo deserves his punishment. Ahead, Dante sees the city of Dis, whose walls glow red from the flames inside. The city marks a division in hell. The circles above punish sins caused by uncontrolled desire. The circles below punish more deliberate evil. Fallen angels refuse to open the gate. Then the Furies appear and call for Medusa, whose gaze can turn people to stone. Virgil covers Dante's eyes to protect him. A heavenly messenger arrives, opens the gate with a touch, and rebukes the demons for attempting to resist heaven. Inside the city, Dante sees burning tombs containing heretics who denied the immortality of the soul. Cantos 10-17, Heresy and Violence. In Canto 10, Dante speaks with Farinata degli Uberti, a proud Florentine political leader. Even in hell, Farinata remains focused on political conflict. He predicts that Dante will soon understand the pain of exile. Another soul, Cavalcante de Cavalcanti, asks about his son Guido. Dante's wording causes Cavalcante to believe that Guido has died, and he falls back into the tomb in grief. Farinata barely reacts and continues discussing politics, showing how completely political pride controls him. In Canto 11, Virgil explains the structure of lower hell. The seventh circle punishes violence, the eighth punishes fraud, the ninth punishes betrayal. Fraud is more serious than violence because it misuses human reason. Betrayal is the worst form of fraud because it destroys a relationship built on trust. Dante and Virgil enter the seventh circle. The first ring contains a river of boiling blood. Tyrants and murderers are submerged according to the amount of violence they caused. Centaurs patrol the river and shoot any soul who attempts to rise. The second ring is a dark forest. Dante breaks a branch and hears the tree cry out. The trees contain the souls of people who died by suicide. One of them is Pierre Delvigne, who killed himself after being falsely accused and imprisoned. Because the suicides rejected their bodies, their souls have become trees. After the last judgment, their physical bodies will hang from their branches. The third ring is a desert of burning sand beneath falling flames. Dante meets Capaneus, who continues to insult God even while suffering. Virgil explains that Capaneus's pride and anger increase his punishment. Dante also meets Brunetto Latini, one of his former teachers. Brunetto predicts that Dante will achieve fame but will be treated badly by Florence. At the edge of the seventh circle, Dante sees Geryon, the symbol of fraud. Geryon has the face of an honest man, the body of a serpent, and a poisonous tail. His appearance shows how fraud works. It presents a trustworthy face while hiding danger. Geryon carries Dante and Virgil down into the eighth circle. Cantos 18-30, Fraud and Malebolge. The eighth circle is called Malebolge, meaning evil ditches. It contains 10 trenches, each punishing a different form of fraud. In the first ditch, seducers and panderers are whipped by demons because they manipulated others. In the second, flatterers are buried in waste because their pleasant words were dishonest and worthless. The third ditch contains simoniacs, religious leaders who bought or sold church offices. They are placed upside down in holes while flames burn their feet. Dante speaks with Pope Nicholas III and condemns church leaders who treated sacred authority as a way to gain wealth. In the fourth ditch, fortune-tellers and false prophets walk with their heads twisted backward. Because they attempted to see too far into the future, they can no longer look ahead. The fifth ditch contains corrupt politicians submerged in boiling pitch. Demons attack anyone who rises to the surface. The pitch represents crimes that were hidden during life. The sixth ditch contains hypocrites wearing beautiful golden cloaks lined with heavy lead. The cloaks appear impressive but are unbearable to carry, reflecting the difference between appearance and truth. The seventh ditch contains thieves. Snakes bite the souls, transform them, and exchange bodies with them. Because thieves took what belonged to others, they can no longer control their own bodies or identities. In Canto 26, Dante meets Ulysses, also known as Odysseus. Dante gives him a final journey that does not appear in Homer's Odyssey. Instead of remaining at home, Ulysses becomes restless and sails beyond the known world. He gives his men an inspiring speech about pursuing knowledge. However, he uses his words to lead them past a boundary they were not meant to cross. A storm destroys their ship, and everyone dies. Ulysses is punished because his desire for knowledge was not guided by humility or responsibility. In Canto 27, Dante meets Guido da Montefeltro. Guido became a friar and hoped to repent, but Pope Boniface VIII asked him for dishonest advice. The Pope promised to forgive Guido in advance. Guido advised him to make promises to his enemies and then break them. After Guido died, a demon claimed him, because true forgiveness cannot be given for a sin someone still intends to commit. The ninth ditch contains people who created division. A demon cuts their bodies apart. Their wounds heal as they walk, but they are cut again when they complete the circle. Because they divided families, religions, or political groups, their own bodies are divided. Dante also places Muhammad and Ali in this ditch. This portrayal reflects Dante's medieval Christian hostility toward Islam and should not be treated as an accurate account of Islamic belief or history. The 10th ditch contains falsifiers, including alchemists, impersonators, counterfeiters, and liars. They suffer from disease, thirst, and physical corruption because they corrupted what should have been genuine. Dante becomes distracted while watching two sinners argue. Virgil criticizes him, explaining that Dante must understand evil rather than enjoy it as entertainment. Dante feels ashamed, and they continue toward the bottom of hell. Cantos 31-34. Treachery, Satan, and the escape. Dante sees what appear to be enormous towers. As he approaches, he realizes they are giants standing around a deep pit. One is Nimrod, who is associated with the Tower of Babel. His language is confused, and no one can understand him. Another giant, Antaeus, lowers Dante and Virgil into the 9th circle. The final circle is not filled with fire. It is a frozen lake called Cocytus. The 9th circle punishes traitors. It is divided into 4 regions based on whom the souls betrayed. Cana contains traitors to family. Antenora contains traitors to countries and political groups. In Antenora, Dante sees Count Ugolino biting the skull of Archbishop Ruggieri. Ugolino explains that Ruggieri betrayed and imprisoned him with his sons and grandsons. The tower was sealed, and no food was brought to them. Ugolino watched the children die one by one, before he also died from starvation. He ends by saying that hunger proved more powerful than sorrow. The line may simply mean that starvation killed him, although some readers wonder whether he ate the bodies of the children. Ptolemy contains people who betrayed guests. One soul explains that some acts of betrayal are so terrible that the guilty soul falls into hell before the person's body dies. A demon then controls the living body. The final region is Judaica, named after Judas Iscariot. It contains traitors to masters, rulers, and benefactors. The souls are completely sealed inside the ice. At the center of hell, Dante sees Satan. Satan is enormous and trapped in ice from the chest downward. He has 3 faces and 6 bat-like wings. As he beats his wings, he creates the freezing wind that keeps the lake solid. His attempt to escape only strengthens his prison. Each of Satan's mouths chews a sinner. The center mouth contains Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus. The other mouths contain Brutus and Cassius, who participated in the assassination of Julius Caesar. Satan is not presented as a powerful king. He does not rule from a throne or command the other souls. He is silent, trapped, and miserable. His rebellion did not make him free. It placed him at the farthest possible point from God. Virgil tells Dante that their journey through hell is complete. He climbs down Satan's body while carrying Dante. When they pass Satan's hips, Virgil turns and begins climbing in the opposite direction. Dante becomes confused. Virgil explains that they have passed through the center of the earth, so gravity has changed direction. What once seemed like a downward journey has become an upward climb. Dante and Virgil enter a narrow underground passage and follow it toward the surface. Eventually, Dante sees an opening above them. Through it, he can see the night sky. After the darkness, violence, and suffering of hell, Dante and Virgil climb out of the earth and see the stars. That is where Inferno ends. However, Dante's journey is not finished. Hell has shown him the consequences of sin. He must now learn how a soul can change, heal, and move closer to God. That journey continues in Purgatorio, the second part of the Divine Comedy.